Okay, let's move on now to just about a few days from now. The people in Edo State, residents of Edo State, will be filing out to, among 17 candidates, choose who will be the governor of the state after Godwin Obaseki, which is why we're bringing this to the fore. Joining us on the program from Benin City, the Edo State capital, is Mr. Derek Izedonmwen. Is the ADC governorship candidate in that election. Mr. Izedonmwen, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much, Jeff, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I'm going to ask you a very straight question because I like straight questions. So do you stand a chance in this election, in your view, objectively and candidly? The reason is because when we look at the permutation, with all sense of respect, I must say, there's a battle between Obaseki and Akpata in Edo Central, where they come from. The big political parties, as it's called, Ighodalo versus Okpebolo. Edo South, I should say, Obaseki Akpata, Ighodalo versus Okpebolo in Edo Central. And then when you go north, you have big weights like Senator Adams or Shomole versus Philip Shaibu. Do you stand a chance?
Thank you. That's a very interesting question. Of course I do. I do because, you know, if you look at the dynamics, I mean, I've traveled up north, central, and even the south of Edo State. What you find is the people are really tired of the kind of governance we see today. And when you look at the sort of zero-sum game that these big parties are playing, we know from our own permutations that they will end up cancelling themselves out. And as they say, when the property of the kid is held up high, at some point the adult will bring it down and the kid will have his property. So the Edo people are ready to take their property back. Permutations are fine, but when you feel the pulse of the people, it is clear to us that Edo State people are looking for something fresh, something new, and we would take the spoils out of the fight of these two big parties. That's our mission, and that's what we're going to do. So in terms of the direct response to your question, yes, we have a chance.
So you are sounding to me like we're going to be around the fringes and get from it what will be the destruction of both parties when they go against themselves. Do you even have the war chest? Because elections are expensive.
Yeah, we don't play the kind of politics they play, the politics of money bags. We are trying to change the equation in our state. And what we are doing is asymmetrical. When you're fighting a conventional army, you go with strategies that are different from conventional warfare. So we are doing, if you like, political guerrilla warfare. I wouldn't want to go into the details, but it's hinged around community organizing. And the people in these big parties will receive a shocker come September 21st.
Well, okay, I'll take your word for it. It's just 72 hours from now. We're going to see how things play out. Interesting. We always like the conversation and the rhetorics of politicians before the polls, and we'll get to see what happens after the poll. We've seen that ADP, NRM, SDP, and I think the other two parties have decided to say they want to support Monday Okpebolo on this one. But let's talk about what you will do for the people. And I want to ask some specific questions. For instance, I understand that Edo has about 9,000 kilometers of road, and most of them are federal roads. A couple of them are in bad state. For you, if that is a situation which we've seen which we heard from the people that we've spoken to, and sometimes government counters the accusation that it's more federal roads, it's not state road, and all that back and forth. What exactly will you do differently? Obaseki was there. He's been there for 8 years.
What we intend to do, and that hinges on one of the cardinal points of our agenda, which is the RAISE Agenda, which is for rural revitalization, for R, A for agriculture, I for industrialization, I for infrastructure, and of course, S for security, E for excellence. But if I zero in on I for industrialization, infrastructure, it is very key that the infrastructure in a state is at least above par for the sort of strategies we intend to deploy, because if you want foodstuff to leave the farm gate to the factories, you need good roads, you need good infrastructure. If you want the processed food or processed materials to leave the factory gate to the ports, airports or seaports, you need the right infrastructure, i.e. roads. To answer your question, yes, it's a key area we want to focus on. But of course, we will not attack the road problem at once. We are going to look at these areas of strategic importance, those areas that will increase our productivity quotient, if you like, what the economists call the solo coefficient. How will this road transform into revenue for the state, and of course, comfort for the people? So we have a clear plan of certain road networks that we want to start with, and those are what we will kick off with initially, looking at the resources at our disposal. So we would not go the way of the present administration, where we put everything to the federal government. There are clever financing ways we are looking at to bring succor to our people, to open up the intercity roads.
Mr. Izedonmwen, I would have loved,
yes.
My apologies, please. I would have loved you to explain to us how this strategy, how it will work, because there's a debt burden if you are lucky to become the next governor of about 500 billion naira. Although Obaseki has been able to increase the IGR, but it's nothing compared to the level of need in terms of finances. So big plans, but we don't have the money. Even the federal government is struggling, which is why they floated the naira and removed subsidy. Where will you get the money?
They are struggling because there's a lot of cluelessness. I'll tell you why. Fixing an economy requires the right people, the square peg and the square hole. But leave the federal chaos for now. Let's come back to Edo State. Talking about Edo State. Yes, it is true that we have close to 600 billion debt that we're sitting on. Why that debt is there is a different question. But I do know that in our plan, we would look at this debt, look at the details, and we have started looking at ways that we can explore refinancing this debt, extending its tenure, and getting more favorable terms so that we can create some fiscal headroom for us to borrow more, because we need to borrow. Let's call a spade a spade. What the problem is not about borrowing. It's what do you borrow to do and how do you spend that resources. A lot of people, a lot of governments we've seen in Edo State, they've borrowed money when dollar was 156, 350 naira to the dollar. They use it to paint red roofs and do whatever they like for themselves, not really investing in productive capacity of our people. And then when you come back 10 years later, the dollar is 1,650, you find that a large part of our federal allocation and even our internally generated revenue go back to servicing humongous debt that have ballooned because of the difference in the dollar-naira exchange rate. So we want to borrow, but borrow to transform our productivity quotient and invest heavily in the empowerment of our people. So yes, we would look at this debt, 600 billion, explore refinancing options. I bring in experts to explore the financing options and extend the tenure so we can have some fiscal headroom to do the government work that we need to do.
All right, Mr. Izedonmwen, great ideas. A quick one before we wrap up. One of the challenges we're having even at the federal level is a level of social safety net that we need as a hedge or a buffer against what we're feeling as a country. Our basics, lights, road, and all of these elements that we're looking for, they are really not in place. So my question to you, how would you repurpose or rethink the economy of Edo State? You mentioned a few, so that things like water can be available to the people through the pipes. It's almost a rare sight in Nigeria. 30 seconds.
Thank you. I'll go at it differently. What we need to do is to democratize prosperity. What do I mean by that? The number one agenda, the number one area we want to focus on is agriculture. So we want to empower people. I'll give you a classic example. If I give women in the villages today, one of the local governments, 500 goats, Nigerian dwarf goats that produces 4 kids every year. In a year, these dwarf goats will produce 20,000 kids. These 500 women with 500 women with 10 goats will have 20,000 goats. In today's amount, you have a goat for 50,000 naira. Immediately, you create 1 billion naira for a local government. So there are clever ways we intend to create prosperity for our people and empower their earning capacity. Because when they are earning more, then they can go into the market to spend more and create a multiplier effect in the economy. So we're not just going to be giving rice and giving handouts. We're going to restructure the economy and try to address the structural economic imbalance that we see so that we can turn our economy from consumption to production. That is, invest in the productive power of our people, especially manufacturing, moving things from the farm gates to the processing factories. Even if it's just repackaging cashew nuts, we've done the economics and we see how much more money we can put in our people's pocket, and specifically for export. So our focus is going to be exporting our agricultural products that have been processed. Yes.
Mr. Derek Izedonmwen, we wish you the very best. Now the Edo people can see you and they have a choice in their hands. 72 hours is all it takes. By this time on Saturday, we'll be looking at numbers and tallies. All the best. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Jeff. I wish the Edo State people a peaceful election, and I look forward to all of them going out to cast their ballots and their votes for ADC.
All right. Thank you for coming. Thank you so much for your time as well.